Under the violet shimmer of the imperial hall, the Galactic King stood on a dais of glass and light, his scaled hands spread wide as the galaxies revolved beneath his feet. Around him, the council of 1,000 species waited, some floating, some coiled, others clicking mandibles in restless excitement. The king's voice boomed through the stars, carried on every frequency known to thought. Today, he declared, the species of blue origin shall serve. His eyes, jeweled and cold, glimmered like suns dying. A roar of approval rippled through the hall. Across the universe, cameras captured the moment, the declaration that would end a species, or so they thought. On the edge of the hall, seated beside a nervous avian diplomat, sat a human. Not a general, not a warrior. At least, that's what the nameplate said. Captain Avery Cole, Terran representative. He adjusted his tie, smiled politely, and took a sip from his dented steel thermos. The liquid steamed faintly. Its smell, burnt and earthy, made several alien delegates recoil. "Coffee," he murmured, as if introducing them to a sacred weapon. The king leaned forward. "Captain Cole," he said, his voice rich with mock courtesy, "on behalf of your primitive homeworld, do you accept your new purpose under the benevolent hand of the galactic throne?" The hall hummed with the soft laughter of species who had seen 100 conquests. Avery set down his thermos, folded his hands, and regarded the king with calm, ocean-gray eyes. "Your Majesty," he said gently, "Earth appreciates your enthusiasm about our employment. Though I must warn you, humans are notoriously bad at staying on schedule." A ripple of confusion spread among the audience. Some translated employment as indenture, others as economic symbiosis. The universal translators sputtered for a moment, unsure whether to categorize the human's tone as humor or defiance. The king smiled, thin and sharp. "I am told your kind makes fine laborers," he said. "Endurance without intellect, passion without restraint. You will build monuments to our greatness." Avery tilted his head, considering. "Already on it," he said quietly. The chamber's laughter swelled. Alien nobles exchanged indulgent looks. The T'Charwalel overseer, a creature of bone-white armor and mirrored eyes, clicked its claws together and whispered, "Charming. They make jokes when enslaved." The human smiled wider. "Only when we're nervous." A projector flared to life, showing the blue marble of Earth turning serenely in the void. Around it glittered the faint haze of orbital satellites, nothing remarkable to the Empire's eyes, just metallic specks in decaying orbit. "We will send fleets," the king announced. "They will land on your continents and install the banners of the throne. You shall deliver tribute or bodies and loyalty." Avery scribbled something in a small leather-bound notebook. The scratching of his pen seemed oddly loud in the silence. The alien beside him leaned in, curious. "What is he doing?" "Writing," murmured another. "But what language is that?" No one could answer. "Captain Cole," said the king, his tone tightening, "your silence implies compliance." Avery looked up. "Compliance? Oh, absolutely. We love helping with home improvement." The phrase triggered another wave of confusion. The translator rendered it as domestic enhancement rituals. A slug-like envoy whispered, "Are humans builders or decorators?" The king raised one elegant claw. "It matters not. They will kneel." Avery's eyes flicked toward the viewing platform, where cameras floated like insects. Billions across the galaxy watched the lone human among gods. He offered a small, almost shy smile. "On Earth," he said conversationally, "we have a saying. The customer is always right." The king frowned. "And what are you implying?" "Oh, nothing. Just wondering if you've ever had a customer service complaint go really wrong." The hall erupted in laughter again. It was, after all, the comedy of weakness. The guards smirked behind their visors. The moment passed, and the king lifted his scepter, ending the session. "Let it be inscribed," he thundered. "From this moment, the Terrans serve the throne." The chamber's lights dimmed in ritual acknowledgement. Avery rose slowly, buttoned his coat, and bowed. "Your Majesty," he said, voice smooth as silk, "Earth accepts your declaration. We'll do our best not to disappoint you." When the human left the hall, the laughter followed him like an echo. Behind him, the king leaned to his advisor. "Harmless little mammal," he muttered. "I almost pity them." In the docking bay, Avery paused beside a viewport. The Empire's capital world shimmered below, rings of industry encircling oceans of fire. He watched it with quiet fascination, like a man studying a chessboard before his first move. His aide, a young alien translator assigned to him, fluttered beside him nervously. "Captain, do you truly mean to comply?" Avery smiled, unscrewing the cap of his thermos. "Sure. Compliance just means doing exactly what you're told, right?" The aide hesitated. "Yes." Avery's tone softened. "And sometimes, to do what you're told, you have to interpret how you're told." He drank deeply, eyes glinting with something the translator couldn't name. A small shuttle waited for him, a clunky, outdated craft dwarfed by the Empire's shining cruisers. Its hull bore the faded insignia of the United Terran Fleet. As he climbed aboard, the translator bowed low. "Safe travels, Captain." "Always," he said. "You know how we are with traffic." The ship lifted off, streaking toward the void. Inside, Avery opened a secured case. Within it lay a thin wafer of glass, etched with coordinates that pulsed faintly. He tapped it once, and the pulse spread outward through the ship's systems, unseen, unremarked, but copied across frequencies like an old song. In the control room of the Imperial Palace, a technician frowned. "Sire," he said, "there's a brief resonance spike in the human's shuttle frequency." "Interference," the king said. "Their technology is primitive. Let them have their toys." The technician hesitated. The pattern of the spike looked rhythmic, almost deliberate. But he said nothing more. Far from the capital, deep in the black between stars, hundreds of faint echoes stirred in response. They were small, almost invisible, metal ghosts left to drift after humanity's so-called wars. Old defense drones, retired orbital platforms, forgotten satellites. Now, each blinked awake, one by one. Avery's voice whispered softly into the void. "Showtime." He leaned back, closing his eyes, the faint hum of his engines blending with the heartbeat of distant Earth. Somewhere, billions of humans stared at the same broadcast he had endured. They laughed, they cursed, they drank, and they began to prepare. Back in the throne hall, the king stood alone before the collapsing hologram of Earth. He stared at its calm, oceanic face and felt, for a fleeting moment, something he hadn't known in centuries: unease. Because in the frozen stillness of that blue planet, every continent's light flickered, once, twice, then vanished entirely. And somewhere, on a private Terran frequency, a single human voice whispered through static, already on it. The T'Charwell overseer stood over the polar domes of Antarctica, its mirrored eyes reflecting the frozen waste below. Beneath the glass of its command platform, millions of human workers toiled in quiet, eerie synchrony, hauling or building landing pads, assembling prefabricated temples in honor of the galactic throne. To the T'Charwell, it was glorious submission. To the humans, it was theater. Every movement, every word spoken on the cold plains had been rehearsed. Even their exhaustion was choreographed. When the overseer's translator asked, "Are your people pleased to serve the Empire?" the assigned foreman smiled faintly and replied, "Oh, absolutely. We live to make others comfortable." The translator's sensors detected no hostility, only warmth. And that, more than any weapon, unnerved it. Across the Empire's occupation zones, humans behaved like perfect subjects. On Mars, engineers built signal amplifiers that were, in truth, quantum mirrors. On the Moon, miners dug deep under orders to produce platinum for the throne, never mentioning that the shafts followed fault lines mapped centuries earlier for seismic collapse. Every act of labor became an act of preparation. Captain Avery Cole traveled between the sites, calm and cordial, the same faint smile always on his lips. Efficiency, he told the overseer during their inspection, is humanity's new religion. The alien tilted its head. "And your old one?" "Still under renovation," Avery said, eyes drifting to the horizon where the auroras glowed like bruises in the sky. He handed the overseer a mug of steaming brown liquid. "Try it," he urged. The overseer sniffed suspiciously. "Toxic." Only spiritually. It sipped and nearly convulsed. Bitter. Avery chuckled. Acquired taste. Keeps us awake. You might want to start. As they toured the labor fields, alien drones hovered above, documenting what looked like endless compliance. The Empire's analysts watched from orbit and applauded. Remarkable, one said. They adapt quickly to subjugation. Another noted, no rebellions, no sabotage, no propaganda. They've accepted their role. But on Earth's internal channels, the truth pulsed in code, hidden in weather reports, stock tickers, and baseball scores. Rain expected over the Atlantic translated to fleet calibration successful. Yankees lose by 3 meant 3 targets neutralized. Even children's cartoons carried strategic updates. The first to notice the anomaly was a Chiron data scientist stationed in New York. She observed how every human transmission carried micro-delays, impossibly precise, like musical timing. She approached the THRYLL overseer with her findings. They are communicating beyond our filters, she warned. The overseer laughed, a dry metallic sound. Communicating about what? Their recipes. Possibly, the Chiron said. But if so, their cuisine involves orbital trajectories. That night, Avery hosted a banquet for the overseer's delegation. Long tables were laid under the ice dome, candles flickering in oxygen-controlled air. The food was human, the music soft, the manners impeccable. When the aliens raised their glasses, Avery proposed a toast. To cooperation, he said. The THRYLL repeated, to cooperation. And mutual understanding. Another pause. Of course. And, Avery added gently, to remembering that history favors the ones who write it. The silence afterward was almost imperceptible, but the overseer's inner membrane twitched, a flicker of instinct older than civilization. Something about the human's tone, its composure, unsettled it. You speak boldly for a subordinate species. Avery's smile never faltered. You mistake boldness for clarity. Later, as the banquet ended, the overseer watched humans clear the tables. They moved with eerie precision, every gesture efficient and soundless. Your people function like machines, it murmured. Avery glanced at the workers. That's funny, he said. We used to say the same about our machines. 3 days later, the Empire began formal resource extraction. Massive harvester ships arrived, blotting out the sky. Humans lined up in neat rows, offering tribute and data files. The Empire's logistics AI congratulated itself on a seamless conquest. Yet something was wrong. The supply logs didn't align. Crates marked mineral or weighed less than expected, but contained dense electromagnetic shielding. Fuel depots burned brighter than any liquid known to the aliens. The overseer confronted Avery on the tundra. Explained these discrepancies. Avery looked thoughtful. Inventory's a tricky thing. Maybe our math is just human. You mock us. Never, he said. Just trying to help. He crouched, picked up a handful of snow, and let it fall through his gloved fingers. You ever notice how it melts faster when you stare too long? Observation changes behavior. What are you implying? That you should probably stop staring. The overseer's claws flexed. You will address the king directly to explain these inconsistencies. I'd love to, Avery said cheerfully. He owes me coffee. Back in orbit, Imperial scientists began to notice anomalies in human neural patterns. The species they reported exhibited elevated synchronization across global EEG data, impossible levels of coherence for an independent population. One analyst murmured, it's as if their entire species is counting down. The report never reached the king. During the next inspection, the overseer arrived with 2 armed guards. Avery welcomed them with the same warm smile. Security's getting tighter. You expecting trouble? Only from you. Well, Avery said, that's a compliment where I come from. The overseer gestured sharply. Your people will dismantle their communications networks. All transmissions are to cease immediately. Avery raised a brow. All of them? Including music, movies, that sort of thing. Yes, especially those. Tragic, he said. We're quite attached to rhythm. The aliens shut down the global bandwidth. For 6 hours, Earth went silent. No broadcasts, no chatter, no digital pulse. To the Empire, it was submission at last. But as the hours passed, faint lights began to appear across the oceans, patterns visible from orbit, glowing in red and gold. From the air, they formed massive spirals, perfectly symmetrical, each pulse timed in unison with the others. "What are those?" a THRLL officer asked. "Celebrations," Avery said from the command platform. "We do fireworks differently." Moments later, power grids across Earth shut off again, but this time they stayed off. The overseer turned to Avery, furious. "You will restore them." "Oh, I'm sure they'll come back online," he replied softly, when the songs finished. At that instant, every orbital satellite blinked once, transmitting what looked like static. In reality, it was a compressed data burst, a symphony of frequencies layered deep within the spectrum. The overseer's instruments overloaded trying to decode it. When it finally stabilized, the alien screen displayed one simple human phrase: Maintenance Protocol 0. Phase complete. Avery turned to the alien and said, "See? We follow instructions beautifully." The overseer's eyes widened. "What have you done?" "Just cleaning up," he said. "Earth likes things tidy." Outside, in the upper atmosphere, old satellites began to burn, each release scattering metallic dust into specific orbits, forming a vast reflective shield. Empire ships detected interference, their sensors blinded by a sudden surge of solar reflection. The overseer shouted for evacuation. Avery simply sipped his coffee. When the first fleet's communications blacked out, the alien guards reached for their weapons. Avery didn't flinch. "Relax," he said. "This part's automatic." He looked toward the horizon, where auroras twisted into a luminous storm. "Funny thing about smiles," he murmured. "They're just teeth hiding." The overseer stepped back, realizing far too late that every human smile had been a mask, and every act of obedience a calculation. Above them, the night sky shimmered with hundreds of faint points igniting one after another, forming a pattern invisible to alien eyes, but instantly recognizable to humans. A warning sigil carved in light. Avery's communicator chirped once, a single tone. He smiled, faint and almost tender. 3 rotations, he said quietly, repeating his promise to the king. "We tidy up first." Then he raised his thermos in a mock toast to the terrified overseer and whispered, "Cheers." The first fleets arrived at dawn. Their silver hulls blotted out the clouds, sunlight glinting on countless banners of the galactic throne. From orbit, the Empire expected surrender, a line of slaves bowing on their knees before their new masters. But what they found was silence. No transmissions, no signals of distress. Only the turning of a pale blue world, calm and indifferent beneath the void. Aboard the flagship Veneration, Admiral Syrinx watched Earth rotate slowly across the viewport. His sub-commanders whispered nervously. "They've cut communication entirely," one said. "Maybe their primitive systems collapsed." Syrinx's eyes flicked toward the dark bands over the Atlantic, shadowed regions where the power grids had failed weeks before. "They're hiding something," he murmured. A quiet ping echoed through the deck. "Transmission incoming," said a technician. The Admiral turned. "From who?" "From them." The hologram flickered to life, revealing a human face. Captain Avery Cole. Same calm smile, same unbothered tone. He looked impossibly relaxed, as though the sight of an armada orbiting his planet were a minor inconvenience. "Good morning, Admiral," he said. "I trust the journey was pleasant." Syrinx's scales rippled. "You will power down all defense systems and prepare your species for integration." Avery nodded thoughtfully. "Integration. Lovely word. We've been preparing for that." "Then surrender," Syrinx hissed. "Oh, we already did," Avery replied. 3 rotations ago, remember? We just like to tidy up before guests arrive." Before Syrinx could respond, a tremor ran through the ship. Every console flickered. Warning runes flared red. Gravitic interference detected. A crewman shouted. The stars outside began to distort. Thousands of dots, what they thought were satellites, shifted formation. Within seconds, Their trajectories converged into perfect lattices around the fleet. "Those aren't satellites," said a voice on the lower deck. Avery's hologram smiled faintly. "No, they're invitations." The first detonation hit like a heartbeat. The orbital lattice pulsed white, discharging a massive EMP wave that crawled across space like wildfire. Alien ships shuddered, engines dying, comms collapsing into static. The Veneration's lights died completely. In the black silence that followed, Avery's voice continued softly, transmitted through residual magnetic fields. "You wanted monuments to your greatness. We made you constellations instead." Syrinx bared his fangs. "This is treachery." "Perspective," Avery said. "You call it treachery. We call it Tuesday." Every ship in the first wave began to fall, gracefully at first, then in spiraling ruin. Their reactors shut down, systems locking in safety loops they didn't understand. The Empire's AI cores screamed warnings that humans had rewritten their security protocols months ago. Aboard the flagship, Syrinx staggered toward the console. "Reactivate control." "It's not responding," the technician cried. They're speaking in binary analog." "Manual override." Avery's voice came again. "You really should have read the fine print when you installed Terran firmware updates. Free trial periods can be unpredictable." The Admiral snarled. How could you possibly?" Avery's eyes softened. "Because while you watched us build your temples, we watched you. Every system, every habit, every assumption. We're not stronger, Admiral. Just patient." The fleet descended into chaos. Ships collided, forming streaks of light in the upper atmosphere. Debris burned like falling stars over the Pacific. From the ground, humans looked up at what seemed a meteor shower, and some cheered, some cried, and some simply whispered prayers. At the Empire's capital, panic spread. Ministers shouted conflicting orders. The Galactic King smashed his scepter against the floor. "Find me that human." "He's not on Earth, Your Majesty," said a trembling aide. "His shuttle's transponder disappeared 2 hours ago." "Then where is he?" No one answered. Half a galaxy away, Avery watched the burning horizon from an old Terran orbital outpost long believed abandoned. Its panels glowed faintly, ruins of human engineering hidden under decades of dust. He stood before a cracked viewport, thermos steaming beside him. "You know," he said to the empty room, "I warned them about maintenance schedules." Behind him, dozens of operators sat at antique consoles. Their uniforms bore no insignia, only the faint blue emblem of the United Terran Continuum, a name erased from records centuries ago. "Phase 1 complete," reported a young officer. "Enemy fleet incapacitated." "Losses?" Avery asked. "None." He exhaled slowly, eyes glinting with restrained sorrow. "Good. Let's keep it that way for as long as we can." In the chaos above Earth, one of the Empire's ships managed to reignite engines. The captain, a proud warborn of the Cryot species, hailed the surviving vessels. "Weary group. Their planet is weak. Fire on their cities." But when the cannons aimed, their targeting screens filled with interference, human music, loud and jubilant. A country song, ancient and ridiculous, blasted through their channels. "Take me home, country roads." What is this?" the alien captain shouted. On every frequency, human voices joined in, a choir echoing through static. And beneath the melody came another transmission, Avery's calm, measured tone. "See, Admiral? We told you we're big on culture." Then the firing systems overloaded. Energy cascades turned their own weapons inward. One by one, ships disintegrated in bursts of golden light, painting the heavens like fireworks. Down below, children pointed skyward, thinking it was celebration. Perhaps, in a way, it was. At Imperial command, the King's advisors scrambled to restore order. "Deploy the secondary fleets," one yelled. "Strike their communications." Another turned, pale with realization. "Their communications are the weapon." "What do you mean?" "They used their entire planetary network as an array. Every song, every broadcast, every frequency, it's synchronized. Their entire species is a single transmitter." The King's hand trembled on his scepter. "Then destroy the source." Sire, the aide's voice faltered. The source isn't Earth anymore. It's everywhere. In the throne's shadow, the hologram of Avery Cole flickered again, his face calm as dawn. You studied our weapons, he said softly. But you never studied our hearts. You thought order was strength. You never learned what happens when chaos gets organized. The king roared. You dare threaten the throne? Threaten? Avery tilted his head. Oh, your majesty, we're well past threats. The transmission ended with a faint click. Silence fell in the grand hall until the stars outside began to dim. For the first time in recorded history, the Galactic Relay Network, an empire-spanning web of power and light, flickered, then went dark. Across thousands of worlds, communication vanished. Fleets lost guidance. Trade collapsed. Every system that had laughed at the barbaric mammals suddenly realized their empire depended on Terran code. And in that spreading void, human laughter echoed like distant thunder. Aboard his outpost, Avery watched as the lights of 1,000 suns faltered. Phase 2 in 30 hours, said the officer beside him. Your orders. He gazed at the stars, those same stars that once looked down on humanity as prey, and whispered, let them remember this silence. Then he picked up his thermos, took a long sip, and smiled faintly. We tidy up next. Outside, the shattered fleets drifted in orbit, their banners burning, their pride dissolving into ash. But deep within the wreckage of the Veneration, a single emergency beacon flickered to life, recording everything, broadcasting it across the empire. Billions watched Avery's calm face one last time as he said the words that would echo through generations. We don't do slavery well. And with that, the signal cut, leaving only static and the faint hum of distant storms. The war that followed didn't look like war at all. It looked like silence. Planets went dark one by one, their suns dimmed by vast mirrors drifting in perfect human formation. The galactic throne, once radiant across 1,000 systems, now shivered beneath the black curtain of Earth's retaliation. Every empire channel, every relay beacon, every drone feed carried the same haunting phrase, etched in perfect calm across the void. We tried kindness first. In the chaos, the Galactic King retreated to his command citadel, an obsidian tower that pierced the clouds of Ryko's prime. Advisors screamed for action, priests begged the gods. Generals argued over whose fault it was that a single backwater planet had dismantled an empire older than its moon dust. None could explain it. The humans hadn't invaded. They hadn't occupied. They had simply smiled, spoken politely, and pulled the stars out from under everyone. Far beyond the capital, the remains of the first fleet drifted in silence. Among the wreckage, an encrypted pod cracked open, and a projection shimmered into existence. Captain Avery Cole, seated casually at a steel table, thermos beside him, sleeves rolled up. His eyes were calm, his voice conversational. We warned you, he said softly. We said we're bad at slavery. You mistook that for humility. That's on you. His image appeared across thousands of worlds simultaneously, like a ghost in every system. This isn't revenge, he continued. It's symmetry. You made chains. We prefer balance. The broadcast ended, but the panic it left behind didn't. Whole fleets deserted. Governors declared neutrality. The proud THRYLL overseers vanished into the deep void, erasing their own records to hide from human censors. The empire cracked not from explosions, but from the unbearable weight of realization that they had provoked a species that never fought for conquest, only for meaning. In the Terran command bunker beneath what used to be Denver, Avery stood before a holographic map of the galaxy. The lights marking alien strongholds blinked out one after another, replaced by cold white nodes of silence. A young officer whispered, Sir, the outer rim worlds are surrendering without contact. Avery's voice was quiet. They're not surrendering. They're evacuating before we even arrive. He turned, his gaze distant. They think we're coming for them. They don't understand we already have. The officer hesitated. Sir. He smiled faintly. Data is territory. And they gave us their maps. Outside the bunker, vast carriers rose through storm clouds. engines thrumming with the sound of thunder and prophecy. The ships bore names painted in bold, ironic strokes: the Roseanne, the Chandler, USS Comfort Food. On their hulls, emblems of laughter and grief mingled, as if humanity itself couldn't decide what emotion best suited annihilation. As the fleet prepared for launch, transmissions poured in from every colony. Soldiers joking about barbecue in zero gravity, engineers arguing about whose playlist should accompany the next orbital bombardment. Even at the edge of extermination, humans carried their strange warmth like armor. When the first wave of human counteroffensives began, it wasn't marked by fire. It was marked by music. Across the Empire, radio waves burst with old Earth songs. Johnny Cash, Nina Simone, distorted blues riffs from ancient archives. The aliens heard it as chaos. Humans heard it as home. The Galactic King stood before his grand window, watching the last of his defense grid collapse. "They're animals," he whispered. His advisor trembled beside him. "Animals don't build symphonies out of war, sire." "Then what are they?" The advisor looked away. "Hunters that learned manners." The king turned sharply as a new hologram flickered into being. Avery, again, though now his voice was colder, stripped of the earlier humor. "Majesty," he said, "your fleets have been neutralized. Your colonies disconnected. You can still save what remains of your kind. Leave the humans alone." "You speak like a god," the king snarled. "But you're just a man." Avery's smile was soft. "Exactly. That's what should terrify you." The king lifted his scepter and slammed it down. "You'll burn for this." "I won't," Avery said simply. "You already are." The hologram vanished, replaced by a sensor alert. From the edge of the system, hundreds of points of light emerged. Human ships riding plasma wakes, their formation precise as clockwork. They weren't firing. They were positioning. "Target analysis?" the general cried. The technician's voice broke. "They're not targeting us. They're drawing something." On the tactical display, the fleet's paths connected into a vast, spiraling pattern, the Terran sigil of warning, glowing across the entire sky. The king's breath caught as the stars themselves seemed to form a symbol older than language. Then the sigil pulsed. It wasn't a weapon. It was a mirror. Energy from the Empire's own suns bent and folded, reflected back upon itself by human-engineered orbital veils. Worlds began to flicker, their cores overloading from redirected light. In less than an hour, the heart of the Empire became a crown of fire. In the command bunker, silence reigned. The young officer stared at the data feeds, whole systems vanishing from the charts. "We're wiping out civilizations." Avery's hand tightened around his thermos. "No," he said quietly. "They wiped themselves out when they believed kindness was weakness." The officer's voice trembled. "Sir, the king's last transmission. He's offering surrender." Avery looked up, weary eyes reflecting the red glow of the dying stars. "Tell him Earth doesn't take slaves. We make memories." He turned away before the message was sent. Far across the void, the Galactic King fell to his knees as his palace trembled. Through the cracks in the sky, he saw his fleets, once infinite, reduced to dust, spiraling toward a single blue planet. "What are they?" he whispered. And from the collapsing comm channels came Avery's answer, calm as rain, with a species that named storms after people. The Empire's collapse was not marked by screams, but by applause, from the humans watching from orbit as light flooded the dark. They didn't cheer for death, they cheered for release. Hours later, when the fires finally dimmed, the stars looked cleaner, quieter. Humanity had erased civilizations, yet their ships returned home carrying no trophies, no captives, only silence and ash. Avery stood alone on the deck of the flagship Chandler, watching the ruins drift across space. His crew moved quietly around him, their laughter subdued now, their pride tempered by grief. He whispered to no one, "We were never meant to rule anything." His second-in-command approached. "Sir, the council requests a statement." He exhaled. "Tell them the war's over. And if they ask what we've won." Avery's gaze softened. Time. Just time. The stars reflected in his eyes, each one a ghost of what once was. Behind him, Earth's transmission beacons reactivated, flooding the galaxy with a single phrase repeated in 1,000 tongues. We do not seek conquest. We seek peace. But peace, when broken, remembers. Aboard one last surviving alien cruiser, a terrified scholar stared at the human broadcast, tears of bioluminescent light streaking her face. They didn't want war, she whispered to her companions. They wanted to be left alone. And from the human transmission came one final message, spoken in Avery's familiar voice, so gentle it could have been mistaken for mercy. Next time, don't mistake the smile for surrender. Then, without fanfare, every human ship powered down its weapons. Engines dimmed. The fleets turned toward the sun, gliding home through the scattered dust of what had once been gods. On Earth, dawn rose over silent cities. Children played in streets washed by golden light, unaware that their world had just redrawn the map of creation. In the distance, a radio hummed faintly, an old song about roads and home. And high above, drifting alone among the wreckage, Avery Cole recorded his final log. They called us slaves, he said softly. Now they'll remember us as something far worse. He paused, a faint smile crossing his lips. Predators that learned how to smile. The transmission ended, and for the first time in history, the galaxy had no kings. Only echoes, and the quiet sound of humanity exhaling.